China is on the march.
The United States and China, so much about the world we live in, rides on their relationship.
We've always had a great relationship.
How they compete, how they come together, shapes the global order. It will do for generations to come.
Theirs is a relationship defined by competition, both racing to be the biggest and the best, economically, technologically, militarily. But under Donald Trump, this is a relationship that has been far from smooth.
China, China, China. China, we're speaking to China.
There have been tariffs and trade wars.
China, first row.
Trump meets Xi is the next round of Who's the Daddy, in a game that neither can afford to lose.
So, headed into this historic summit, who has the upper hand? Who should the world look to for global leadership? Who is the greatest superpower? I'm Helen-Ann Smith, Sky News' Asia correspondent in China.
And I'm James Matthews, US correspondent in Washington, D.C.
So, there's this extremely popular phrase doing the rounds on Chinese social media at the moment. The phrase is 川建国. It literally translates as Trump nation builder.
So 川建国，
你们都以为川建国发起关税战，
特朗普起的名字真的恰如其分，川建国。
But here's the catch. It doesn't mean that Trump is building up his own nation. What it implies is that his actions are allowing China to increase its national standing. The Chinese people are trolling Donald Trump big time. But do they have a point?
So Donald Trump is big news over there. What about Xi Jinping over here? Do you know the name of the leader of China?
No, I don't.
Xi Jinping? I know it's like Xiaoping, I believe.
Chai Ping, something like that.
I don't think I could. I'm sorry, I'm not that involved in politics.
Xi Jinping?
Yeah?
Xi Jinping? No.
This is the Department of Labor in Washington, D.C., now with a big poster of Donald Trump on the front. Look at the size of it. It has a dear leader feel. It could almost be China. Trump changed the face of trade with China. He started a trade war in his first term. Businessman Trump didn't see the business sense in a massive trade deficit. Donald Trump slapped tariffs on Beijing, and they got bigger. His second term saw Liberation Day, tariffs for all, China in particular.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day. China, first row.
This was a president who wanted to reassert economic dominance. It didn't necessarily work out.
The problem for Trump is that this time, China decided it wasn't going to take it lying down. The economy here is anchored largely in the manufacture of goods, sold locally, yes, in places like this, but also shipped en masse to places like America. But despite that reliance, the judgment was that the economy was resilient enough to fight back. China could match strength with strength. And so a tit-for-tat escalation followed, which saw tariffs at their height of over 125%.
China's retaliation squeezed Donald Trump. So did the US Supreme Court when it skewered his tariff policy. Today, US-China tariffs are down on both sides. America has felt the pain of a trade war, and Trump isn't delivering on promises to bring down prices. That's not just a China thing, but China is a big factor.
But China has a trump card, if you like, and it's something based far away from commercial centres like this. China is almost totally dominant in the rare earth element industry. These are the vital components used to make everything from smartphones to cars, from AI technology to cutting-edge weaponry. They had the US over a barrel, and they knew it, and they didn't flinch turning off the taps to inflict pain and secure leverage. It is an ace card. They're probably not yet done playing. The Bund in Shanghai is one of the best places to come if you want to understand just how far China's economy has come. On the one side, European built at a time of weakness and colonial domination, and on the other, this glassy tribute to China's modern, ultra-rapid economic growth. But be in no doubt, Trump's trade war has caused real pain here. The economy is reliant on exports, and many of them were to the US. And then there are other problems: debt, deflation, a limping property market, high youth unemployment. But interestingly, none of this necessarily weakens Xi Jinping's hand at the negotiating table. China is pursuing new markets, and it has a far higher tolerance for pain. Rising prices won't affect him at the ballot box.
America imports far more from China than it exports, more than $400 billion compared to $100 billion. Donald Trump will attempt a rebalancing act when he goes to Beijing. But rolling back decades of outsourcing and reliance on China isn't straightforward. Sanctions are a blunt instrument. Two can play that game and both can lose. The two countries have learnt that much. Expect Donald Trump to finesse his strategy. The Americans travel to Beijing with a longer game in mind, less confrontational than they've been in the past. There's a reason they call the occupant of the White House the leader of the free world. In the West, US leadership has preserved life as we've known it for the past 80 years. With Donald Trump, not so much. He's broken the mold, fractured old alliances. He's threatened to pull out of NATO and even threatened to annex Greenland, a place that falls under NATO's umbrella. This is an erratic, unpredictable president. Donald Trump has undermined old certainties and cast a vision of a different global order, all the while cozying up to the world's dictators. He does so with an eye on China. He himself styled the phrase Dunroe Doctrine. It asserts US dominance over the Western Hemisphere, exerting American strength in that part of the world and opposing Chinese influence.
This hotel has a really important place in the history of the US-China relationship. It was the place where, in 1972, President Nixon came. He met with the then Chinese Premier Zhou Enlai, and they signed what's known as the Shanghai Communique. It was, in essence, the starting point of their modern geopolitical relationship. And it marked a moment where China was coming out of a period of international isolation. How strikingly different things are today. While Trump disrupts, China casts itself as the great convener, the grown-up in the room. And it's been seeking allegiances that might rebalance a global order that it has long seen as too Western-centric, from vast investments in the global south to new networks and summits with it at the core. China pitches itself as an unjudgmental friend to nations shunned by the West, as a predictable, stable partner to nations who might feel let down by the States. And crucially, it's been working.
But does more heft in the world mean more heft with Donald Trump? And what do people here think? Who do you think is the stronger leader going into their meeting next week, Xi Jinping or Donald Trump?
那我说习近平吧。
为什么？
为什么？因为他是我们中国的领导人。
Do you think to have Donald Trump as the president of the United States, do you think that makes the world less safe or more safe?
这个战争是他发起的吧？你说呢？
Maybe a crazy man.
A crazy man.
现在我认为中国的智库应该也是很强大的，会对他有办法的，会对他有办法的。
The United States has the world's most powerful military, tried and tested through time. This is a memorial in Washington to veterans of the Korean War. Its power is clear to see in Iran, but so is America's vulnerability. Military intervention hasn't given Donald Trump what he wants, neither has diplomacy, not yet at least. It questions his judgment, his strategic competence. It's not a good look for the US president as he arrives in Beijing. Neither is America's request to the Chinese to lean on its friends in Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. In the constantly shifting power dynamic between Washington and Beijing, China saving the day isn't the shift that Donald Trump had scripted.
Trump's military adventures also give China the opportunity to push the stable superpower narrative. But it does shed light on China's reluctance to intervene militarily. It did not rush to the aid of either Iran or Venezuela, even though both were good friends. Over recent years, China has poured billions into modernizing and expanding its military. It might now be the biggest in the world, but it's not the most capable, and it's certainly not the most experienced. The modern PLA have actually never officially fought a war. Monuments to the war dead here remember those who fought many decades ago. Remember too, China doesn't mind one bit the US being distracted and depleted elsewhere. It has its eyes on Taiwan, the self-governing democracy it has sworn to retake by force if necessary. US intervention is probably the only thing that could stop it, and it is perhaps the greatest challenge between them.
Could Taiwan count on Donald Trump to come to its defense? Some aren't so sure. On the face of it, his position is the same as his predecessors, strategic ambiguity. But unlike presidents before him, who've made it clear they would come to Taiwan's defense if China attacked, Donald Trump's public statements have left room for doubt.
Propaganda has been so central to the growth and the survival of the Chinese Communist Party, and this museum documents it in all of its varied glory. But you get a real sense being here of just how opposing the two systems are. For China, the party's ultimate control of society, of the narrative, is the reason for its success. It sees democracy as a flawed, chaotic, divisive, even hampering system. And the two men at the top, well, they could hardly be more different.
But he's a very tough negotiator. That's not good.
Xi Jinping doesn't need to worry about the next news cycle. He will play the long and strategic game. Both say they want a more stable relationship, but real trust in the context of the systems that divide them, well, that might never be possible.
The Lincoln Memorial, Abraham Lincoln looking down on us. Nothing says legacy quite like this place. How Trump handles Xi will define much about his presidency, his legacy too. The subject matter is key, of course. So is the dynamic between the two. Do they get along? Donald Trump says so. He describes their relationship as excellent, very good. The inscrutable President Xi is less forthcoming, but his actions speak to a friendship of convenience, of necessity. They are leaders pursuing stability between them for mutual benefit, but it's complicated. How Trump handles China will do much to define his presidency and his place in political history. It matters to him. It matters to all of us.
An historic summit on China's home turf. A meeting not just about personal legacy, but about national ascendancy too. A balancing act between superpowers with truly global implications.